Chapter 481 Questioning. Of course Jiantong obeyed Jiang Lian's words without saying anything. The disciples of the Xianjian sect were a little curious about Jiang Lian's arrival at first. But later they were a little surprised when they heard someone from the Jiantong sect said that this was his new disciple. You must know that Elder Jiantong has never had a true disciple. Looking at the sword in the hands of this new junior sister, they had also seen him use it in Elder Jiantong sect. It must be the real thing. The competition started soon, and Jiang Lian scored the highest score. Taoist Xixia, like the great masters of other sects, waits until the second or third round to appear. However, Piaomu Xinzong was with Taoist Xixia that day. They also saw Taoist Xixia's attitude towards Jiang Lian. They were shocked after seeing Jiang Lian come on stage. Plus, they heard that he was still a true disciple of Master Jiantong. Now they couldn't stand it anymore and hurriedly went back to report. When Xixia Taoist arrived, Jiang Lian was about to step off the stage. Looking at the people on the stage, the formations in his mind couldn't help but start running. He hesitated at this time. He knew clearly that this person had cheated, but he didn't dare to take any action at all. And his heart was filled with hatred. Taoist Xixia snorted coldly and went back in the direction he came. He couldn't say it, but it didn't mean that others couldn't. As long as he didn't show it, he didn't believe that person could do anything to him. Jiang Lian's prediction was correct. When the rankings were eliminated in the second round of group battles, someone stood up and pointed at her and said that Xianjian sect was cheating. Jiang Lian's cultivation was not like this. I am reporting that she is not from the Xianjian sect, nor is she a member of the Xianjian sect. This is cheating by the Xianjian sect. I reconsider. When Gusen was there, I saw with my own eyes that she used coercion to keep everyone from getting up. Yes. Master Jiantong was also one of the original members. So they are not a master-disciple relationship at all. Those people were chattering, and the game was paused. The referee frowned and looked at Jiang Lian on the court. If something is said by one or two people, it is more likely to be false. But if it is said by a group of people, it needs to be verified. The game continues, and we will handle it according to the old rules later. The referee looked at the game halfway on the field and made a decision. The old rule is that suspects continue to compete. But if they commit any brutal behavior, they are disqualified. There will be a test after the competition. If there is really a difference in cultivation, all the results obtained in the competition will be cancelled, and corresponding penalties will be imposed. Of course, it would be completely different if the person who reported it had evidence. Jiantong has been very nervous since those people reported him. He has always been serious, and nothing can be seen from his expression. It was the sect leader who came over this time from the Piaomu Immortal sect, and decided to turn on the snooping mirror under the very sure guarantee of Taoist Xixia. Originally, their sect was completely sure of victory this time, but they didn't expect that Cheng Yaojin would appear, seeing that the cultivation level was only at the great perfection stage of Qi training. But it had completely surpassed the level to a very terrifying level. Those who had reached the great perfection stage of foundation building were directly kicked off the stage. But they did not use anything special to deal with the situation. Just in terms of swordsmanship, this situation completely broke their understanding. You must know that although you can participate in the Qi training period of this competition, those who come here are specially trained. It is very rare to be able to survive the second round, let alone such a fierce one. If there is nothing fishy about it, you will definitely not believe it. Just right. The referee was still happy after receiving the news. Using a spyglass was the best confirmation. And if there was a problem, he could catch it on the spot. Jiantong and King Qinzi waited anxiously until the game finally ended. Sun Yi stood there coldly and motionless, his eyes following Jiang Lian on the stage all the time. Jiang Lian himself was very calm and leisurely until the end. Of course, in addition to their Xianjian sect, there were also Xianjian sect's more friendly sects on the stage. The others were eliminated, leaving only 20 people who had just advanced. The people who stayed looked at each other and stayed away from Jiang Lian, worried that this cruel man would accidentally kick them off the stage. But the people of Xianjian sect were not worried at all. They had some admiration for this person, but they were also a little worried about whether the person who came here was evil because of what they said. In view of the report, we are now investigating the situation at the place where the incident occurred. The referee stood on the stage, with the head of the Piaomu Immortal sect standing next to him. After the referee finished speaking, a mirror appeared in the hands of the leader of the Misty Immortal sect. As the spiritual energy surged, the spying mirror instantly enlarged and flew into the air. Everyone could clearly see the picture on the mirror. The formation floated above, casting a beam of light from the mirror onto Jiang Lian's body. In just a moment, waves of ripples appeared on the mirror. Everyone looked nervously at the picture on the spyglass. Taoist Zixia, who was standing in the shadow, was extremely excited. He wished that Jiang Lian would be discovered the next moment, and the group of people from Xianjian sect would also be in bad luck. It's a pity that all their plans failed, and the picture on the spyglass didn't change at all. This situation obviously means that there is absolutely nothing like what the whistleblower said. At this time, the head of the Piaomiao immortal sect looked very bad. He glanced at the incredulous Taoist Zixia from the corner of his eye. Seeing his ruthless look but not daring to say anything at all, his disapproval of him became even greater. He was more or less aware of all the things that Taoist Zixia did overtly and covertly. In the past, the interests of the sect were not involved, so he turned a blind eye. Now that their entire sect has been put into such a situation in public, their opinions on Taoist Zixia are even greater. Taoist Zixia obviously didn't notice the change in the master's mood, and was immersed in the fear Jiang Lian brought to him. In fact, most of the informants were present at the time, and they couldn't believe the result. I haven't tested her cultivation yet. Maybe her cultivation is really fake. I don't know who shouted, but there was obviously uncertainty in the tone. Others immediately agreed, waiting expectantly for the referee to test as if they had found a breakthrough. Okay, let's do the test. The referee was very indifferent to this matter, and directly waved the people below to start preparations. Jiang Lian was extremely calm, standing there calmly, and smiled at Sun Ye's position. That smile was very calm. Obviously Jiang Lian was completely unaware that his grace could easily distract people. Yi Sun, who has a complete soul, is very jealous. Let alone Sun Yi, who is full of dark energy, originally sitting there indifferently. He was completely jealous at this moment, but he did not dare to show it to Jiang Lian. The people around him completely sensed it, and trembled away from the big boss. Chapter 482 Testing Cultivation Level. Even if Jiang Lian didn't turn around to look, she could still sense Sun Ye's mood swings. But she didn't go over to comfort him at this time. Occasionally being jealous is also a kind of adjustment. Sun Yi itself is a part of Yi Sun. Although it is demonized, the things inside are completely different. Knowing him, she can definitely judge the situation. At this time, the referee had taken out the spiritual stone and a series of testing tools and came to Jiang Lian. Please put your hands above. The visitor's attitude was quite good. After all, this is just a suspicion. Besides, even the most famous snooping mirror of the Piaomiao immortal sect cannot be tested. So it is already close. Someone with such strength will definitely become a big boss in the future and should not be offended. Jiang Lian didn't say anything and directly put his hand on the spirit testing stone. The referee's spiritual test stone is completely different from the daily test for entry-level disciples. The spirit testing stone used in the entry-level basic test is to test the spiritual roots, which is completely different from the spirit testing stone in front of you. The spirit testing stone here can test the true cultivation level. At other times, this is completely useless. But it is different here. After a burst of light, the spirit detecting stone emitted white light. The white light that filled the spirit detecting stone did not completely fill the entire stone. Such a result shows that her cultivation is at the great perfection stage of Qi training, and it has not even reached the great perfection. The cultivation strength shown by Jiang Lian is exactly the same. Subsequent tests showed that Jiang Lian did not cheat and his cultivation was not hidden. Even those people who were originally on the ancient forest couldn't believe it. The original pressure was absolutely unfailing. This situation was completely beyond their understanding, and they even began to wonder if the previous pressure was just a coincidence and was not coming from Jiang Lian. Jiantong felt very unbelievable. He had Jiang Lian's guarantee in the first place. But when the facts were before his eyes, it was still completely unbelievable. How? The referee over there looked at the result and said nothing. So Jiang Lian asked, It is judged that Jiang Lian did not pretend to be a man of cultivation. Zuanjiaman did not cheat, and the competition results will remain the same as before. The referee was also very happy and announced it directly. The test was also tested. Even the Piaomiao Xian sect snooping mirror was deployed. But there was no change at all. There are only these methods of identification in this world, and there is no other way. The referee declared that the second round of the game was officially over. Taoist Zixia in the dark felt helpless no matter how unwilling he was, and was obviously a little decadent. According to the way he acted in the past, he would definitely play dirty tricks secretly. But now, he didn't dare to provoke the other party because of his strength. and he would be able to deal with one bad move. His head hurt when he thought of this, and the formations in his brain began to operate again. With this movement, Taoist Zisha's trembling heart became even more uncontrollable. He couldn't understand the formation at all, and it was completely dangerous. If it continued to stay in his mind, it would be a great harm. No! He couldn't let it go like this, and had to think of a way. After Jiang Lian returned to the rest area of Xuanjianmen, his temporary classmates were very happy. If you ask me, this time it must be another conspiracy of their misty immortal sect. I originally thought they would tamper with those test items, but I didn't expect it. It was a false alarm. Yes, yes, those people from the Piaomu immortal sect are the most shameless. Fortunately, this time it was a false alarm. Junior sister is indeed a junior sister. The disciples expressed their dissatisfaction and speculation about the Piaomu immortal sect one after another, and it almost became a criticism meeting of the Piaomu immortal sect. Of course, it's all in private, and they really don't dare to directly confront this super gang. Jiang Lian didn't discuss anything with them, just smiled and nodded and walked towards Sun Yi. When she came closer, Sun Yi's face no longer looked jealous at all. Although Jiang Lian didn't smile on his face, his breath was very gentle. My husband has kept you waiting for a long time. Some of the people on the field who had not yet left looked at Jiang Lian and kept paying attention to her as they watched her walk towards Sun Yi. Those who had been present at the Gusen incident all recognized Sun Yi as the person who had been with Jiang Lian. After the occurrence of this test incident, they all suspected that the coercion was coming from the man in front of them, who could not see his true cultivation. After all, under the strong pressure, they fell directly to the ground, without any energy to observe who sent it. It was Jiang Lian who threatened them at that time. So maybe they misunderstood. There are countless people who have this idea, not including those from the Piaomu immortal sect, especially Taoist Zisha himself. How could the person who could lay out such a powerful formation really just be in the Qi training period? What's more, they were on the opposite side when the conflict arose. So how could it be someone else? Even though he knew it in his heart, Taoist Zisha didn't dare to take any action at all. He didn't have enough trust. There was a formation in his mind that threatened him at any time. If others knew about it, it would put himself in danger. Moreover, he has countless enemies on weekdays. It really makes people know that there are many people who want him to die. Taoist Zisha was really in trouble at this time and felt very aggrieved. After this competition, although I had never seen Jiang Lian before, her popularity among Xianjian sect has instantly exploded. No matter they are men or women, they all trust her. In the same way, Elder Jiantong asked the disciples in the sect who had entered the competition to gather together to arrange some related matters for the third round. As a lecturer, Jiang Lian, no one said anything, and they all admired her. No one dared to disapprove of the strength shown in the first and second rounds. Jiang Lian was very satisfied with this result. Jiantong thought that the previous pressure was from Sun Yi, and that Jiang Lian's true strength was originally revealed now kept echoing in his mind. During the competition, the reflections on one of the swords that Jiang Lian used made his heart beat. As a sword fanatic, such an apprentice would not want to miss it. After hesitating and hesitating, when he was about to tell Jiang Lian, he suddenly discovered that her cultivation level, which was originally at the great perfection during her Qi training period, had faintly fluctuated. Instead of growing upward, there is a downward trend. This situation made Jiantong a little overwhelmed, and all his original thoughts suddenly disappeared. It seems that he thought too much, and the original idea was correct. When the matter in the secret realm is over, the deal between them will be completed. Jiang Lian, who was sitting there leisurely waiting for Sun Yi to feed her, was completely unfazed at the moment. Although her cultivation level had fallen off quite seriously, she was completely used to it, and she was even a little curious about when it would fall to the bottom. But she still hopes that it won't end so early. She hasn't gotten the vermilion fruit yet, so she hopes to persist until then. Chapter 483 Spiritual Suppression. After Jiantong left, Jiang Lian said to Xuanya, Miss Sir, if I go back first, you must go find the vermilion fruit yourself and drink it. Go back first? Sun Ye's voice was a little cold, and he was obviously unhappy. Jiang Lian was really at a loss. She understood Sun Ye's state of mind very well. She had just died as Gu Lian at this time, so Sun Yi probably still had a shadow in her heart. Based on the extent of his demonization, Jiang Lian understood that he had probably reached a dead end. Yes, I guess I can go back soon, and we will be able to meet again soon. This was true. But Jiang Lian could clearly feel that the aura around him had become colder, even if the coldness wasn't directed at her. What's wrong? Don't like it? Jiang Lian looked particularly gentle and patient at this time, and even felt guilty for some reason. Are you going back to see him? Sun Ye's inexplicable question made Jiang Lian stunned for a moment, unable to realize what the other party was saying. Who? Her confused look made Sun Ye's expression even worse, but her attitude towards Jiang Lian was not affected. His hand gently touched her cheek, and his voice had a unique magnetism, but was a little suppressed. Even if you know that I will merge again, what you will see when you go back is the me in the future. But why do I feel so unhappy? Jiang Lian finally understood who he was talking about. It turned out to be himself. After a moment of silence, Jiang Lian couldn't help laughing. You're even jealous of yourself. When Jiang Lian laughed like this, Sun Ye's originally affected mood dissipated instantly, and he looked at her helplessly. Don't worry. We will be able to meet again soon. As he spoke, Jiang Lian touched his ear and rubbed it gently. His voice was very soft. Have a good sleep, and you can see me again when you wake up. Sun Ye lowered his head silently, and Jiang Lian couldn't see any of his expressions. But soon, Sun Ye raised his head and said, Okay, I promise you. Jiang Lian smiled brightly and warned again. Remember, you must take the vermilion fruit before going back. Okay. After the jealousy had passed, Xu Ye said nothing more, but he knew in his heart that the jealousy was getting worse. The third round of competition came soon. Now Jiang Lian's cultivation has dropped to the late stage of qi training. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, she activated Yu Qiong's hidden disguise. The competition was in a fantasy world. After the first and second rounds, and Master Jian Tong gathered together for a meeting. Everyone followed Jiang Lian's orders. After entering the secret realm, Jiang Lian investigated and found that the surrounding environment and format were very similar to the original Kunlun trial competition. Her cultivation level continued to decline, and she couldn't wait much longer. She turned on Yu Qiongyin again, and the location of the crystal stone immediately appeared on it. Although it is a test of team spirit, you will be scattered as soon as you enter. Jiang Lian had no intention of taking it slow. She was so familiar with this matter that outsiders couldn't see any problems at all. As the number of times increased, most of the crystals fell into Jiang Lian's name. This is impossible. There must be something wrong. There must be something wrong with her. Jiang Lian was not outside, and Taoist Zixiao was completely unscrupulous. Looking at the data on the ranking list, I became angry. This was really too deceiving. With new and old worries coming together, Taoist Zixiao wanted to push her into eternal doom. The referee frowned and glanced at Taoist Zixiao. With Taoist Zixiao's cultivation, he can still have a place here. But the referee disagrees with his temperament. Even though he knew that there might be something wrong with Jiang Lian's behavior, he did not reply to Taoist Zixiao's words. Forming a seal on his hand, the picture in the atomized illusion in midair became clearer, and a huge golden formation appeared around him. Everyone knows that the greatest function of that formation is to spy on the disciples and the illusion. If there is a problem, the formation will appear in time. But after such a long time, the formation didn't fluctuate at all. The arrogant Zixia Taoist didn't care at all. She must have used some special method. Please ask the referee to check. The referee was obviously very unhappy at this time. You must know that this golden light array has absolute control over the illusion, and there is absolutely no other way to replace it. Just like the Piaomu Immortal Sect's snooping mirror. If nothing is detected, then there is probably no other way in the world that can detect it. Taoist Zixia didn't take them seriously at all because of their referee's behavior. Everyone ignored Sun Ye's existence. When Zixia Taoist still wanted to make trouble unreasonably, he snorted and made him kneel down in front of everyone. Who? Come out! This was the most embarrassing time in Zixia Taoist's history. He knelt down in front of so many people for no apparent reason. There was silence all around, and some people were subconsciously trying to find out who made this person suffer. Obviously, the man had no intention of showing up. He just snorted again, and the floor centered on Zixia Taoist cracked directly. This situation was completely unexpected by everyone. And fortunately, it was Taoist Zixia who was targeted. Otherwise, it would have caused panic. Under the huge pressure, Taoist Zixia felt the pressure of Jiang Lian from different ancient forests. Although Jiang Lian's spiritual pressure was overbearing, it was somewhat tender. At this time, the pressure was completely overbearing and irresistible. Taoist Zixia even felt cold, as if he would freeze to death in the next second. At this time, Taoist Zixia was terrified. He was full of surprise. but he couldn't even raise his head and look around. "Senior, have mercy." He originally thought that he could hold on for a little longer. But Taoist Zixia knew that if he continued to hold on, his body would probably be torn apart by the pressure of spiritual energy. The referee and others originally thought of teaching Zixia Taoist a lesson, but did not take action in time. When they were about to stop him, fearing for their lives, they suddenly realized that such strength was not something they could shake. Not only the powerful referees, but also the head of the Piaomu Immortal sect were also shocked. Zixia Taoist knelt down in public and slapped not only Zixia Taoist himself in the face, but also the faces of their Miao Miao Xian sect. "Who is the senior? If you have offended me, please forgive me. We, the Piaomu Immortal sect, will definitely bring Taoist Zixia to the door to apologize in person," the leader of the Piaomu Immortal sect asked, and his words were filled with aura, echoing in the space at this time. The temptation came to nothing, and the leader of Piao Miao Xian sect felt a little cold. The spiritual pressure was too high, and bloody red lines appeared on Taoist Zixia's body. His teeth were almost broken, and he didn't have the energy to scream anymore. All the powerful people around could only watch. No one dared to say anything, for fear that the fate of Zixia Taoist would be their fate in the next second. Jiantong stood near Sun Yi and looked at Sun Yi subconsciously. The aura was very familiar to the aura that suppressed Taoist Zixia on the field. But if he hadn't been standing next to him, he wouldn't have been able to detect it at all. Chapter 484. Cultivation dropped again. The pressure came and went quickly. If Jiang Lian hadn't warned him in advance before entering the illusion, Taoist Zixia would have become a dead man. Even so, Taoist Zixia still looked like someone fished out of a pool of blood, looking very terrifying. Here, Jiang Lian saw that he was almost there, so he slowly joined the people from Xianjin sect. "I wonder what the situation is now." King Chenzi sat down, and the young apprentice looked into the distance with some worry. Over the years, most of them have been ranked third. The people of the Piaomu Immortal sect have various methods, and something will happen in every competition. This time, their sect's points in the first 2 rounds were obviously on par with Piao Miao Xian sect. Before, people said that the junior sister was cheating. In the 3rd round, based on the past behavior of those from Piao Miao Xian sect, if they had not, he doesn't believe any actions. The people at Xianjian sect comforted him. "Senior brother, don't worry. There is junior sister Jiang this time. There will definitely be no problem." Others echoed one after another, inexplicably having an unwavering trust in Jiang Lian. When Master Jiantong called them to gather for a talk, he said that after entering the 3rd round, everything would be obeyed by Jiang Lian. If it were any other time, they would definitely not agree. "You must know that this person only appeared in Zuanjian in this game, and he has never been seen in the past." Jiang Lian looked at them and had no need to comfort them. If the scene happened to change and the jealous person in her family sensed it, it would definitely be over. Jiang Lian followed them most of the time, just to investigate, and did not specifically look for crystal stones in places she knew. But even so, as a queen, her luck is completely different from that of ordinary people. If she doesn't look for it, those crystals can't help but come out. Such a scene made everyone in the Xianjian sect who followed her couldn't help but marvel. Relatively speaking, people from other sects outside are not so easy to talk to. With the number of crystal stones Jiang Lian and the others possess, the soaring rankings have never been so clear between Wei and Jin. Originally, they were afraid that the person who had just punished Zixia Taoist would have another attack, and they were all as afraid as quails to say anything. Now that the situation was like this, they couldn't help shouting angrily, "Referee! There must be something fishy here!" This man was also smart, and did not point the finger at Jiang Lian again. Obviously, as long as Xuanya didn't talk about his Jiang Lian, he wouldn't pay attention to anyone. The others immediately found the key point and surrounded Zuanjianmen with words, having great opinions on their soaring values. Although some sects that had good relations with Xianjin sect were a little bit uneasy, they still did not participate based on principle. After all, they were all mutually beneficial. Besides, except for Xianjin sect, no one could fall behind this year. Therefore, there is no need for them to offend the Xianjin sect because of this. Others were not like this. Under the pressure of so many sects, the referee did not move at all. How to move? They had just passed the test, and the opponent did not cheat. What else could they say? In the end, there was really nothing they could do. The chief referee responded coldly, "I think this is just luck. Little friend Jiang. It is not cheating at all. If cheating cannot be detected, There is only one possibility, and that is too much luck. Even the chief referee didn't believe it in his heart. How could anyone be so lucky? Looking at the crystal, they were almost looking for it. But he is also afraid. He was afraid that if he accidentally offended the other party, His Majesty and the various sects would be gone in public. The referee's decisive decision made people from all sects dare not say anything. The game ended soon. Jiang Lian and others were teleported out of the illusion. After seeing the values on the leaderboard, everyone was in an uproar. Such a competition result is unprecedented and has never happened before. The disciples from various sects who entered the competition had never seen the tragic situation of Tao Xixia. So they protested one after another, feeling that someone from the Xianjian sect must have done something wrong this time. The leaders of various sects were shocked by this commotion and hurriedly asked people to stop it. The people in Xianjian sect felt like they were in the sky, as if they were dreaming. As soon as Jiang Lian appeared on the field and walked towards Sun Yi, Jiantong noticed that the chill on his body disappeared, and he understood instantly. "Miss Sir, I've been waiting for a long time." Jiang Lian came to Sun Yi's side with a sweet smile. She felt the coldness on his body as soon as it came out. So she asked softly, "What's the matter, sir?" Ever since Jiang Lian appeared, Xuanya's heart and eyes were all focused on her. He looked at her and shook his head. "It's okay." He held her hand and asked, "Go back?" Jiang Lian nodded and turned to look at Jiantong. "Master, we are going back." Jiang Lian knew how to behave in front of outsiders. After seeing Sun Yi's power, Jiantong didn't dare to think that if Jiang Lian really cultivated like this, he could really accept her as his disciple. The coercive aura just now was completely different from the coercive aura in Gusen. Now he was very sure that the breath was definitely Jiang Lian's, and was not an illusion. It's unknown why her cultivation level became like this. It was so miraculous that it was impossible to detect anything. On the way back, Jiang Lian once again found that her cultivation level had dropped again, and she had reached the middle stage of Qi training. She was caught off guard by the sudden drop by a level. "Huh?" Sun Yi sensed Jiang Lian's obvious pause and turned to look at her. "What?" It stands to reason that Jiang Lian would conceal it. But during this period of getting along, she found that Sun Yi's eyes could not tolerate any sand. If she concealed it, it would be very troublesome for Sun Yi to get angry. "My cultivation has dropped again, and I'm in the middle of Qi training." Because he was on the road and worried that the walls had ears, Jiang Lian directly transmitted the message into the secret. Normally, with the gap between their current cultivation levels, it would be absolutely impossible for those who were in the Qi training period to transmit sound to someone with Sun Yi's level of cultivation. However, Sun Yi was completely open to Jiang Lian, even because of their marriage with the red rope relationship. It doesn't matter if the sound is transmitted into the secret. Sun Yi's expression became more solemn. His eyes looked at her for a moment, and his lips pursed tightly. He understood that this was inevitable and completely irresistible. But there was a vague feeling in his heart that if they were separated this time, such days would probably never happen again. Holding his hand, Jiang Lian took his hand and walked towards the residence arranged by Xuanjianmen. And the two of them were silent all the way. "We will be able to meet again soon." When Jiang Lian said this, he suddenly thought that Sun Yi would have to sleep for many years, and said with some distress, "Have a good sleep. And when you wake up, we can meet again we met." Jiang Lian has said this before, but no matter how much he says it, he feels a little feeble. Thinking back to the situation when they first met, she couldn't avoid it at all. She could only look at this time to get along, and Sun Yi's heart would feel better. Chapter 485 Injured. Jiang Lian's silence was very clear to Xuanya. His hand gently touched her cheek. His forehead pressed against hers, and his voice was gentle. "Don't worry. I understand. It's just that only he himself knows the knot in his heart." Jiang Lian is actually a little worried. That is that Gu Lian died and disappeared in front of Sun Yi. If she disappears in front of him this time, she can't estimate the damage caused. Even if she comes here this time, the purpose was completely opposite and worked, and the original goal was lost. The secret realm will be opened in half a month, and all participating sects will rush to the place where the secret realm is opened during this time. Jiang Lian and Sun Yi followed Xuanjianmen's spaceship. During this period, Jiang Lian did not dare to do anything. She stayed in the room all day long. She was afraid that her cultivation level would decline too quickly, and she would disappear before entering the secret realm. Okay, that's it. As for Sun Yi, where Jiang Lian is, he will be there. During this period, Jiang Lian contacted Qilin and informed him of the situation. This is Qilin's calamity, and he can only rely on himself for everything. If they intervene, the outcome of the calamity will be greatly reduced. Maybe God will make up for it next time, and it will be even more terrifying. Fortunately, Qilin itself is an auspicious beast, and when it encounters danger, it can avert danger faster than others. Therefore Jianglian is not worried at all. It took more than half a month for the spacecraft to arrive. Fortunately, during this period, the cultivation level seemed to have heard her prayers, and it did not drop so fast. It took more than half a month to reach the middle stage and close to the early stage. The secret realm is located on a plain and is very vast. The spaceships of the major sects park directly on the ground to camp and rest. I have to thank my seniors for their help this time. After this competition, Xianjin sect became the #1 sect without exception, and its resources were even greater than in previous years. Such changes will undoubtedly take an important step towards future development. Jianglian waved his hand and said nonchalantly, "These have always been transactions. You don't have to thank me." Jiantong saluted again. He couldn't do anything else, but he still took out a space ring and gave it to him. "This is a thank you gift from Xianjin sect." "No need," I said. "These are just a transaction between us. As long as I successfully enter the secret realm, we will cancel it. You don't need to mind." Jianglian did not accept the space ring. "We have to leave, so there is no need to take those things with you." Jianglian refused to accept it, which surprised Jiantong. After confirming again, Jiantong could only bow and salute. "Senior, take a rest for a while. I will have someone call you when the secret realm opens." After saying that, Jiantong went out. Jianglian looked at Sun Yi and asked, "My husband, is there really a way to enter the secret realm?" Now that her cultivation level has almost reached its bottom, she doesn't dare to let her consciousness go out easily. She is worried that she will be sent away directly if it doesn't happen soon. "Yes, don't worry. I'll be here right after you enter." During this period, Sun Yi also knew the pattern of Jianglian's decline in cultivation. With her current cultivation, what he was most worried about was what danger she would encounter if she entered the secret realm. If so, you might use your spiritual power to disappear directly. Therefore, he couldn't wait to follow her directly in before he could feel relieved. Jianglian nodded and could only do this. The entrance to the secret realm was no different from other secret realm entrances. When Jianglian appeared, the people around him couldn't help but talk about it, but they didn't dare to say anything. Everyone had heard about what happened in the third round of the previous match, so just in case they got into trouble, the disciples from other sects, although they felt unhappy, did not dare to take any action at all, because people from all the sects were still watching. Jiantong still called Jianglian his disciple outside. "If you don't find me when you leave the secret realm, I've already gone back," Jianglian said in advance and turned around to leave. It is estimated that only Jiantong and King Xuanzi understood the meaning of this sentence, while everyone else was confused, as everyone entered the secret realm. This time it was still a random transmission. Jianglian was not so lucky this time. As soon as he landed, he met the people from the Piaomu Immortal sect. The same people who were with Taoist Zixia last time. They were all there when she threatened Taoist Zixia. Jianglian stood there expressionless, glanced at them, and looked for a direction without paying any attention to them. Normally, she needs to fly with a sword now. This secret realm is vast. If she relies on one pair of legs to walk, she probably won't be able to walk very far until she dies or runs out of life. Her behavior made the people of Piaomu Xinzong a little confused, and some of them even had a fierce look in their eyes. With Taoist Zixia's methods, it is entirely possible to send dead men into the secret realm to help kill Jianglian. Even though the opponent is powerful, Taoist Zixia has a lot of dirty tricks in private, so it's totally fine if he doesn't fight head-on. Jianglian's eyes sharpened when she sensed the cold arrow attacking from behind, and she hurriedly dodged to avoid it. It's a pity that the spiritual power in her body is limited now, so she only narrowly avoided it. The cold arrow was not done yet, and turned around and rushed towards Jianglian again. If it had been before, the person who shot the cold arrow would have been dead long ago. But Jianglian had no time to care about it now, and he didn't even have the time to stop and take a closer look at who had done it. The disciples of Piaomu Xinzong began to discuss Jianglian's reaction. Others did not believe in evil, and with the thought of death in the worst case, they also used sword moves, which were cruel. No matter how powerful Jianglian is, he can't cope with this situation at all. His cultivation has dropped rapidly again, and he has dropped to the early stage of Qi training. In order to preserve some cultivation, see Sun Yi again and let him leave first. She suffered many injuries, eagerly looking for a gap to see how to escape. The people of Piaomu Xianzong were completely excited when they saw Jiang Lian like this. Kill her and we will be rewarded. Fellow disciples, let's go together. The people of Piaomu Xianzong were a little hesitant at first, but after seeing how easily they let Jiang Lian take advantage, they suddenly felt motivated, and without hesitation, one by one, they went straight to kill Jiang Lian. No one knows about accidental deaths in the secret realm, so they are completely unscrupulous. Jiang Lian smiled bitterly, fully knowing in her heart that the Piaomu Immortal Sect must have used means. Otherwise, how could so many disciples of the Piaomu Immortal Sect be teleported to one place at the same time? This is completely unreasonable. Her guess was actually correct, but it was also biased. The Piaomu Immortal Sect used a secret method to bring the disciples of their sect together, in order to prevent the disciples from being scattered and being killed and harmed by people from other sects. Jiang Lian was unlucky enough to meet him. At the critical moment, a coercive pressure appeared in the sky, and the momentum directly crushed the people of the Piaomu Immortal Sect. Chapter 486: How to Give Up. After Jiang Lian noticed Sun Yi's pressure, she felt relieved and hurriedly took out the medicine from the space and stuffed it into her mouth. The disciples of Piaomu Xianzong originally wanted to kill Jiang Lian without stopping, but in the end, they were stunned and couldn't move at all. Soon, Sun Yi appeared next to Jiang Lian. He felt very distressed when he saw the injuries all over her body. There was a terrifying storm brewing in his black and white eyes, but his voice was unusually gentle. I'm here. Don't be afraid. Jiang Lian nestled in Sun Yi's arms, feeling reassured. Don't be afraid. I know you will come. Fortunately, when she arrived, she still retained some spiritual energy. Otherwise, her entry into this world would have been in vain. Shall I take you away first? After hearing this, Jiang Lian actually knew what Sun Yi wanted to do, and said with a smile, My husband, you don't have to avoid me. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me at all. Such people would have been very miserable if her cultivation had not been like this in the past. But it was a pity that she was powerless now. Xuanya looked into Jiang Lian's eyes, looking at her as if confirming something, and finally nodded and said, Okay. Even though he agreed, Xuanya still hugged Jiang Lian and turned around. The people of the Piaomu Immortal Sect had never thought that just a moment ago they were thinking of leaving Qin Shan without worrying about having no firewood. After these two people left, they would find another way. Unexpectedly, when Sun Yi turned around, the spiritual pressure on them would increase. Compared with Zixia Taoist's luck, they were not so easy to avoid this time. Blood mist suddenly appeared on the body. Within a few breaths, those people died and fell to the ground. Blood continued to overflow from their bodies, and in the end even their bodies were a little blurry. Jiang Lian didn't see it, but he thought about it. He felt it was almost done, so he took Sun Yi's arm and said, Don't you want to find the vermilion fruit? Let's go! Looking at Jiang Lian seriously again, Sun Yi felt relieved after not seeing any discomfort on her face. He is a demon, and his soul only has an evil side. It is absolutely impossible to be kind to those people. Jiang Lian is his absolute enemy, and whoever touches him will die. What's more, he was so scared that these people dared to hurt her. They deserve to die. Good. This time Jiang Lian was very proactive, reaching out towards him and saying, Hug! It was so far away that it was better to stay in Sun Yi's arms and let him find the vermilion fruit. Otherwise, she would be worried about accidentally belching her fart, which would be the end of the world. Sun Yi's face, which had become cold and cold because of Jiang Lian's injury, finally had a hint of warmth. But he still frowned at the injuries on her body and asked, Is there no medicine for the injuries? According to Jiang Lian's temperament, she would definitely take out the elixir from the space after freeing her hand. But her injury was still the same as it was at the beginning, and it didn't look like it was repaired after taking the elixir. Touching Sun Yi's frowning brow, Jiang Lian said with a smile, The medicine is useless to me now, but I don't feel any pain. Really? Calculating the time from the entrance of the elixir to now, under the normal effect of the elixir, the scars on her appearance should have healed without any trace. But now the scars on her body have not changed at all. Don't worry. I'll be completely fine again when I get back. Sun Yi sighed, even though he was reluctant to give up. He fully knew that this was inevitable. I'll take you to get the scarlet fruit. After saying that, they hugged Jiang Lian and stepped through the void. Behind them, the souls of the disciples of the Piaomu Immortal Sect were bound one by one, and they slowly melted away like their bodies. If they could, They would definitely not do this again. Besieging Jianglian was the biggest wrong decision they made. It's a pity that Sun Ye's temperament leaves no chance for them. And it feels too light even if the soul is flying. Of course, with Jianglian's current level of cultivation, she has no idea of the plight of those people. If she knew, she wouldn't stop it at all. With Sun Ye's cultivation, it was actually very fast to search for the vermilion fruit in the entire secret realm. And they found the location without waiting long. A red light shines brightly in a large field of flowers, which looks particularly beautiful. After getting closer, Jianglian looked at the fruit wrapped in red leaves, and finally felt at ease. Looking at the growth of the vermilion fruit at this time, it is estimated that it will mature after a while. What's wrong, Mr. Sun Yi? At this time, the hand Sun Yi held felt very tight, even a little trembling. Jianglian hurriedly wanted to check what was going on, and finally understood what was going on when she looked into his deep eyes. Patting his arm, Jianglian comforted. We will meet again. I'm just going back this time. Don't worry. I'm not dead. You resurrected me. She understood what Sun Yi was panicking about, but she had no other way. After thinking about it, Jianglian suddenly thought of the purpose of this time. Well, look at the red rope we connected. After it is repaired, you will be able to find me more easily. Right. Looking at Sun Yi, Jianglian was actually at a loss. She tried her best to comfort him and calm his mood, but found that everything seemed to have little effect. Feeling a little depressed, did she come here in the wrong way? If this arrival makes things worse, and Sun Ye's condition becomes even worse, then the meaning of her coming is completely gone. Facing Jianglian, who was worried about him, Sun Yi finally smiled and said, Don't worry. I understand. I will have a good sleep and wait for your return. Welcome you who may reject me. During this period of time together, Sun Yi fully understood her purpose and guessed something from it. He could guess something from her nervous explanation. At this time, the leaves on the scarlet fruit had fallen off one by one, revealing the bright red fruit. Jianglian urged, Master, take it quickly. The vermilion fruit can repair the soul, although his soul is now divided into two. Taking it will at least reduce the damage, and the pain of missing the soul will also be less. At Jianglian's urging, Xuanye took it in front of her. At this time, Jianglian's cultivation level had reached its lowest level, which was similar to the situation after he had just introduced qi into his body. Miss Sir, can you go back first? She didn't want him to watch her disappear again. She was worried about hurting him again. She understood that if Sun Yi disappeared in front of her twice, she would probably go crazy. Xuanye stood there looking at her for a long time, as if he wanted to imprint everything about her into his mind. The two looked at each other like this, knowing that Jianglian was worried that she couldn't hold it in and wanted to urge him. Sun Yi responded softly, Okay. Sun Yi flew into the sky obediently, and when he disappeared from her eyes, she finally felt relieved and had a smile on her face. Little did she know that not far from her, Sun Yi stood there invisibly. Silly girl! Are you so happy to see me leaving first? But how could he let her stay alone in this world? Chapter 487 Very stupid. When the spiritual power was completely emptied from his dantian, Jianglian didn't have any fear, and felt relieved in his heart. Sun Ye, who was hiding in the darkness, particularly wanted to step forward and hug her. Looking at her body becoming transparent little by little, Sun Yi couldn't help but remember that not long ago, she disappeared in front of him like this. I couldn't help but want to catch her anymore. Sun Ye's reappearance shocked Jianglian. Miss Sir! You didn't go back! The sound carries a unique echo of space. Sun Ye's eyes were filled with sadness at this time, and the pain from his soul resurfaced again. He knew clearly that her disappearance this time was completely different from the last time, but he felt extremely sad in his heart. How can I rest assured if I haven't seen you leave safely? The voice was choked with sobs that Jianglian had never heard before. The system once took her into an illusion and saw the moment when Gu Lian disappeared. Although Sun Yi was in pain at that time, her soul was imminent, and even her resurrection had a time limit, so he had no time to be sad. After everything was resolved, he once had the will to die, and he didn't care at all even if he was permanently sealed. Fortunately, the system took her through time and space and made him change his mind. At this time, Jianglian couldn't help but worry. Did she come to the right place or the wrong place this time? But she had no choice. With her disappeared body and the limits of the two spaces stretched, it was completely impossible for her to come back. The voice of the system suddenly appeared in my mind. Come back! He is fine. It will be better if his emotions are released. System? Jiang Lian was still surprised to hear the voice of the system in his mind again. Emotions released? The man did not shed tears easily. But he was not sad yet. Sun Yi came to her with red eyes. And his voice was pleading. Are you angry? Jiang Lian couldn't help but laugh. You idiot! You are still worried about me being angry even though you are like this. Now I am angry and can still hit you. Go back quickly and have a good sleep. I will show up really soon. As he spoke, Jiang Lian continued to remind. Don't forget the red rope. As long as the marriage rope is still there. Don't worry about anything. Okay? Okay. Xuanya usually obeyed Jiang Lian's words. Let alone now. How about we go back at the same time this time? Jiang Lian's voice sounded like he was coaxing a child. And Sun Yi nodded obediently. You can't lie to me again this time. Jiang Lian reminded him. Worried that Sun Yi would be like before. Yes. Sun Yi did not hide anything this time. And saw a huge space formation appearing behind him. Looking at the formation, Jiang Lian instantly understood that if Sun Yi wanted to leave this world at any time, he could definitely leave with just a lift of his feet. Let me watch you leave here. Okay. Even though he failed once, Jiang Lian still fought hard and never gave up on his previous decision. After a moment of silence, Sun Yi nodded. When Jiang Lian looked at Sun Yi and turned around to walk towards the teleportation formation, she finally relaxed and her body dissipated faster. As the world tree, the system did not dare to let her stay any longer for fear of causing some major incident. If the Emperor of Heaven went crazy, no one would be able to stop her. What's more, he is the Demon Lord now, not the Emperor of Heaven. So he is completely unscrupulous. The moment Jiang Lian disappeared, Sun Yi finally turned around. Fortunately, the system acted quickly. Otherwise it would have been too late. The moment he turned around, Jiang Lian disappeared completely. And Sun Yi didn't see it at all. I felt lost in my heart, as if Jiang Lian had never appeared. But Sun Yi, who was afraid of her dying again, seemed to have no more discomfort in his heart. It was as if this time, he knew completely that Jiang Lian had just returned to her original world. And she was still alive. With a helpless smile. It really is. Finally, Sun Yi stepped into the space formation and disappeared. The flowers that were in full bloom and the lush valley turned into desolation in an instant after they left. The Xianjian sect disciples who came here sensed something one after another, but didn't see anything at all. When Jiang Li opened her eyes again, she met Yi Sun's worried eyes. Lying on the ground, she could see the lush leaves of the world tree at a glance. Miss Sir, I'm fine. After saying that, he got up and hurriedly pulled him, and said happily, Quickly see if the marriage line has been restored. Yi Sun scraped her nose helplessly, his voice full of softness. I've recovered. Don't worry. You rest first. The spiritual energy was conveyed in his hands, and the continuous spiritual energy made Jiang Lian feel much more comfortable. My spiritual power had declined before, but after the spiritual energy in my dantian leaked out, I felt really suffocated. Jiang Lian looked at Yi Sun and asked curiously, Do you have any memory of that world? I felt a little uneasy. Yes. Sun Yi nodded, knowing what the little girl was thinking. With a narrow smile. Remember everything. Jiang Lian touched her head sheepishly. A little embarrassed, but still nervous and wanted to ask him. But she didn't dare to ask, for fear that the inner demon was still there. Knowing Jiang Lian like Yi Sun, after seeing her subtle changes, he said helplessly, You are so stupid. How can you secretly use ancient repair methods just for the sake of marriage? If anything happens, I will never see you again. Xuanya was in the Xianming world and had no modern memory, so he didn't know how dangerous it was to repair the marriage line, let alone traveling through time and space, which was a completely lifeless act. But Sun Yi doesn't know. Doesn't mean Yi Sun doesn't know. He was angry when he spoke at this time, but more felt sorry for her. He had been thinking of ways to fix the marriage line issue. They held the couple's wedding ceremony again, and the problems with the marriage line were actually minimal. No. Look. I'm back well. Besides, she didn't think so much at first. This was the first thing she thought of when she saw Sun Yi. Thinking about it, she is still a little scared. But if she does it again, she will continue to do it. Supporting her, he finally said what she wanted to know most. The inner demon is no more. Don't worry. You worked so hard to enter that world, even risking your life to do it. How could I let you down? After hearing the news, Jiang Lian's eyes couldn't help but light up, and her heart was full of joy. That's great, Mr. Gong. Only then did she remember that Qiling was still inside. and asked the World Tree, "Is this Jillian's history complex?" The World Tree, which had been pretending to be dead since Jiang Lian appeared, finally spoke. "Yes. Host, don't worry. Jillian will come back after experiencing the love tribulation." Chapter 488, Different Physiques. "Can I see how they are doing?" As usual. "This is perfectly fine." But this time the World Tree refused. "That's not good at this point. You are their master, and they can only rely on them to survive the disaster on their own." Jiang Lian was still a little surprised. "Will little Jillian come back with you?" The cute look of that little guy is quite endearing. "This depends on Jillian's choice. There are many endings to the love tribulation. Whether the little Jillian will come back depends entirely on Jillian's choice." Jiang Lian stood there in silence. Although Jillian was not enlightened, Chi-Chung was full of heart. Such a person would really experience a catastrophe of love. Which would be a catastrophe. "Disciple, are you okay?" A voice broke the silence at this time. Old man Hongyan heard that Jiang Lian entered the illusion of calamity and fell into a coma after returning. So he hurried over. Faced with the concern of the old man Hongyan, Jiang Lian felt warm in his heart, smiled and shook his head. "It's okay. I'll be fine if I rest." Yi Sun is not so relaxed about Jiang Lian's calmness. You must know that repairing the marriage line will cause great damage to the caster. Even if it is performed in a fantasy world, it is inevitable to return to reality. After Jiang Lian finished speaking, he disagreed very much and said to the old man Hongyan, "Show her. She used the ancient magic circle without authorization and suffered physical damage." When Hongyan landed, she could tell that Jiang Lian's aura was relatively weak. After Yi Sun finished speaking, he even used his spiritual silk to check her with some seriousness. After he finished reading, Hongyan's face turned disgusting. And Jiang Lian felt more guilty the more she looked at her. Yi Sun originally knew the seriousness of this, but in front of professionals, he felt a little nervous when he saw Hongyan's serious expression. "How? The losses are serious, and it will take some time to recover." The old man Hongyan took out a pill from the space and handed it to Jiang Lian. She was familiar with pharmacology and recognized how precious the elixir was when it came over. "Master, this, after eating, I don't know how to cherish my body," Hongyan old man rambled. But his words were full of concern. Yi Sun was staring at her from the side. So Jiang Lian had no choice but to swallow the elixir obediently. To say that she actually knows her body. It is inevitable to take good care of it for a period of time. But it is indeed a serious loss. It really takes a lot of effort to take good care of it. It was also due to this calamity incident that Jiang Lian could only stay in Time Wei Shan to cultivate. And the wedding on the demon side of the Xianming world was temporarily shelved. Originally it was to alleviate the inner demons that hindered Yi Sun when he was Sun Yi. But now the inner demons have been completely eliminated, leaving only regrets. "Little sister, you don't care about the person in your family. He has become the boss." Jiang Yan once visited Jiang Lian while she was recovering from her injuries, and he couldn't help but complain. Jiang Lian said cheerfully, "Brother, those who are capable work harder." In fact, Jiang Yan had just as many things going on in the past when he was in Time Wei Shan. His complaints were because he felt that a girl suddenly shared them, and he couldn't help but complain. Jiang Yan was worried and hurried back after hearing this before. Now he felt relieved after looking at Jiang Lian's complexion. "Take good care of your injuries, but you don't have to worry too much. Our gods and demons have different physiques from others, and we will be able to recover soon." It's full of life. This is the most powerful part of their clan of gods and demons. And they are also the most powerful clan of gods of war in the heaven. She had heard of the powerful Jiang Lian of the gods and demons, but she used to think it was because of their folk customs. But now it turns out there is an inside story. Jiang Lian looked at Jiang Yan and asked curiously, "Brother, are we really physically different from other people?" In fact, after asking, Jiang Lian was more or less certain that everyone else had either pure spiritual energy or pure devilish energy. But the gods and demons wanted to merge their spiritual energy and devilish energy, and they were in peace with each other. Jiang Lian subconsciously thought of this. Yes, it's different. Jiang Yan wanted to investigate her situation, but Jiang Lian did not refuse at all, putting his hand on his wrist. After a moment, Jiang Yan said with a smile, "You must have sensed it yourself. The situation can recover much faster than ordinary people now." After saying that, he stood up and flicked his sleeves. "Don't worry. It won't be long before you can be full of energy again." Jiang Lian clapped her hands happily and said, "That's really great." Seeing the worried faces of everyone around her, She felt very sorry. The only thing she could do was to get better quickly. Jiang Yin stood aside and couldn't help but laugh when he saw Jiang Yin smiling. It was quiet. Just as Jiang Yin said. Her injuries really recovered at such a fast speed that even Hong Yan couldn't help but marvel. Then he patted his head and said, Yes. Yes. Alu is now a member of the gods and demons. Which is very different from before. I had forgotten this. Even so, Yi Sun was still a little worried. Jiang Lian patted his hand and comforted him. It's okay. I'm really okay. I'm already alive and kicking. Seeing that there was no relief, Jiang Lian could only say, Then if my husband is worried, should I take a rest? These were just words of comfort. But Yi Sun nodded in agreement and said, That's okay. Jiang Lian just tricked herself again. Okay. If his expression could be seen, Jiang Lian felt that his expression must be stiff at this time. So Jiang Lian continued to live with her while she was recovering from her injuries. Yi Sun simply did not make her bored. And she had all kinds of fun. Miss Sir, you asked them to prepare for the wedding over in Netherworld continent. Isn't it bad that our protagonist never shows up? Yi Sun looked at his wife's eyes full of gleaming anticipation for a moment, pursed her lips and smiled softly, still having the same temperament. Want to go out to play? Jiang Lian was not embarrassed at all at this time. Yes, my husband. Would you like to take me out to play? She silently mourned for her brother Jiang Yan for a minute. He would definitely be even busier after she left with Yi Sun. But this is probably the last time. She felt uneasy if she didn't fulfill that regret. Yes. Yi Sun agreed. But it seemed that Yi Sun normally did not refuse what Jiang Lian said. Except for the fact that Jiang Lian wanted to sacrifice himself when Tien Weishan was facing collapse. Yi Sun's original plan was to have Jiang Lian wait for his return in Tien Weishan. But in the end, he couldn't resist Jiang Lian's pursuit. The time between Tien Weishan and Xianming World is almost the same. Otherwise she would have gone a long time while entering the world of calamity and recuperating in Tien Weishan. Fu Cheng and other demons were very happy when they saw Yi Sun again. And the current demon king even saluted Yi Sun and the two without any objection. Your Majesty, everything is ready. Fu Cheng happily stepped forward to report. The old people who had followed Sun Yi since Gu Lian's time were all extremely excited when this day finally arrived. Although they are demons, they also value love and justice. The unprecedented grand occasion that the demons had been waiting for had finally arrived. Chapter 489 ending. On this day, the demon sky was clearer than usual for some reason, with orange-red clouds floating in the sky. The people of the demon clan were filled with joy when they found out that the demon queen was overjoyed. And every household hung auspicious red colors on their homes. Jiang Lian took Yi Sun and walked on the street. Looking at the festive streets, her heart seemed to be filled with something. Happy? Holding Jiang Lian's hand, the corners of her lips could not help but curl up as she became happy. He nodded and looked into the distance. Jiang Lian's beautiful face seemed to glow under the sunlight. Well, I'm happy. Without waiting for Yi Sun to ask, Jiang Lian explained. It turns out that the people of the demon clan welcomed me. I was a little worried when you proposed to take me back to the demon city. There was a touch of sadness in his eyes, and his voice was choked with sobs. If I had not delayed the time and followed you back to the demon clan without hesitation, wouldn't I have avoided all the hardships later? A gust of wind flew by, rolling up the corners of his clothes. Yi Sun raised his hand and touched Jiang Lian's hair, interrupting her random thoughts in time. Don't think about it. All of this is a disaster, and neither you nor I can escape it, he said comfortingly. We will make choices when things are destined to happen. Once we have already chosen, there is no turning back. Besides, if we are born again, I will not regret the subsequent encounters at all. Miss Sir, I understand very well what you mean. It's for my own sake. Jiang Lian smiled with some relief at this time, and then looked at Yi Sun. Miss Sir, have things changed since I entered the Calamity Realm? Normally, this situation would change to some extent, but she wanted to know what else happened next. Yi Sun looked at her lovingly. His voice was hoarse, and he could hear any fluctuations in his mood. Nothing happened. Just like before. Nothing happened. It's just that he has one more memory of her. Jiang Lian was a little disappointed but also a little happy. At least no change was the best change. The two returned to Xuanye's previous palace. The Demon Lord's residence had been sealed since he was sealed. Despite the disputes among the Demon Clan for so many years, everyone had a tacit understanding not to touch it. The red silk fluttering under the eaves and the red words, happy, on the doors and windows added a sense of warmth to the Demon King's hall. which used to be particularly cold, after it was laid out with a red carpet. Is this where you used to live in the demon clan? Jianglian looked around as he walked, touched the seat made of Xianbing jade, and asked with a smile, "Aren't you afraid of being too cold for such a cold chair?" "No." After saying that, Yi Sun pulled her to sit down. Only then did Jianglian discover that there was a formation on the chair made of Xianbing jade, which could not only isolate the cold air, but also allow Xianbing jade to exert its maximum effect. This kind of existence is a luxury in the entire world of immortality, and the preciousness of Xianbing jade is immeasurable. No one thought that Lord Demon Lord used the whole piece to make a chair. Like it? The curiosity in Jianglian's eyes made Yi Sun think that she liked it, and he was ready to build a better one for her in Taiwan Weixin. As for the one here, the entire Xianbing jade seat is big enough, and he is on an equal footing with her. Just curious. Preparations were made from the beginning, so the wedding took place very quickly. The Fu family has always been the most loyal subordinate of the Demon Lord. The already very old Fu Chung was able to witness their wedding this time, and his eyes filled with tears. He knew that his time was running out, and his greatest wish was to see His Majesty's wedding in his lifetime. The breeze blows, and the red silk under the eaves is flying. Guests arrived one after another, and the quiet Demon Lord's hall finally became alive with living people. Jianglian was wearing a red wedding dress with black bottom, looking dignified and elegant, and the skirt had a little bit of fluorescence. As Yi Sun walked forward, when the two stood at the front, all the demons who came to attend the wedding performed the most advanced ritual of the demons towards them. "See you, Your Majesty! See the Queen!" The sound was loud and reverberated throughout the hall. Xuanya was originally planning to hold it in the Tianqing Palace of the Demon Clan, where he would overlook the entire demon realm and let the entire demon realm people witness everything. But this time Jianglian and the others felt that they were no longer in the demon world, and the demon world now had its new owner. It was of great significance to hold the event directly at Sunya's former residence. The moment Jianglian looked at Yi Sun, he seemed to have seen the wedding between her and Sun Yi, and that regret was instantly made up for. The whole wedding is actually very simple. They worship the heaven and the earth. The husband and wife bow to each other, and they are cowed by the demon people. After all the rituals were completed, the demonic energy in the entire netherworld seemed to be purified instantly, and the vicious demonic energy on the demon clan slowly dissipated. Everyone discovered this situation. It was a little strange at first, but looking at the Demon Lord and Demon Queen standing at the front, everyone seemed to understand everything. "It's Your Majesty. It's the Demon Queen," someone shouted. The demons in the hall knelt down one after another, and some even burst into tears. How many years? How many years? As the demonic energy changed, the demons became more violent in temperament. Even so, they have never blamed the Demon Lord for the impact that one woman has had on the entire demon clan for so many years. But they are always looking forward to the return of the Demon Lord, so that the demonic energy affecting their minds can be completely eliminated. Jianglian looked at all this with a smile. Although all the demons in the outside world didn't know what was going on, the demonic energy that had enveloped their minds for many years had indeed affected them. Then they gathered together, drank and talked. The demon clan members did not dare to drink night wine, and the surrounding atmosphere was very lively. Looking at them, Jianglian raised his glass to Yi Sun and said, "Your Majesty, happy wedding." After all, they had held many weddings, each with a different meaning, but this one made the weirdness in her heart disappear. Yi Sun raised his glass to drink with him, the fondness in his eyes almost overflowing. "Happy, madam." "Fond?" "Yes. Enjoy it together." Jianglian smiled happily. "Miss Sir, are you still feeling uncomfortable?" In response to Jianglian's question, Yi Sun held her hand and looked at the demon clan below, but it seemed that he was not looking at them, and his thoughts returned to the past year. Looking back again, Yi Sun scraped Jianglian's nose and said in a very gentle voice, "It's not uncomfortable anymore. Have you forgotten? I said it was completely fine when I was in Taiwan Weixin. Don't worry. I'm completely fine." The two looked at each other and smiled. The Netherworld continent has always been haunted by monsters. On this day, a colorful phoenix appeared in surprise. The colorful phoenix, which represents peace, actually appeared in the Netherworld continent. It is really a wonder of the world. On the street, there was constant shouting, and the whole street was very lively, since the demonic energy in the demon world was purified. The situation in the demon world seems to be completely different. Selling fish soup. Fresh and delicious fish soup with sweet meat. Jianlian suddenly paused when passing by a stall. He hurriedly covered his mouth with his hand and supported Yi Sun with his other hand, looking very uncomfortable. The shopkeeper who was originally hawking noticed Jianlian's situation and kindly reminded Yi Sun, "This gentleman, your lady may be pregnant and cannot smell the fishy smell." Pregnant? Yi Sun looked at the store owner in disbelief, and then at Jianlian, who was holding her hand. "Yes, that's right. Your wife's condition and pregnancy are very imaginary. Sir, you can take your wife to have a look. There is a medicine shop right in front of you." The shopkeeper who sold fish soup looked at Yi Sun's confused look and immediately understood what it was. Condition. Based on her years of experience, it was obvious that this person was pregnant. So she kindly reminded her. Jianlian was still in shock when he was pulled towards the drugstore by Yi Sun. This was the first time he had seen that panicky look. The Emperor of Heaven, whose face remained calm even in the face of chaos, actually seemed to be walking with the same hands and feet at this moment. "My husband? Stop!" Jianlian hurriedly grabbed him and said with a smile, "Can you detect it yourself if your husband forgets?" Her own body knew it best. She didn't notice it at first, but it was the reminder from the store owner that made her aware of it. After being reminded by Jianlian, Yi Sun held her hand and started to feel it, and then became nervous and finally surprised.